timetable of Dubuque District. That's where I was working when I was conductor.
Oh, really?
Towards the end.
Okay, now did you work for the Chicago Central at all, a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The
Up
IC
till-
abandoned us.
Yeah, right.
We got stuck with that guy. What the heck was his name? I can't even think of it.
I can't either, I should know. The guy who took
And he
over.
changed it to the Chicago to the CCP.
Yeah, Chicago
Yeah,
Central Pacific.
Yeah, and I worked for them when I was retired. I retired from that railroad,
Okay,
actually.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, what year did you retire from the Chicago?
I knew you were gonna ask me that, no, I can't remember. Let's say
Basically.
56 and 37 years, 37 and a half is what?
Well, let's see. 93 was it?
92, 93.
Okay, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had bad knees, diabetes, overweight, and so lucky and
Yeah,
Dr. Burnell got me a disability pension.
really? Okay.
So I've been on pension since 93. I've been on pension a long time.
Wow. Now, being a photographer, I shot the Chicago Central. I was living in Vegas, and I came back because I'd seen this Trains magazine article with the Chicago Central, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is basically the old Illinois Central. All the
Yeah.
old Jeeps were there, you know, and you still had some of the Jeep 9s, the black ones with
yeah.
the green diamond. And
Yeah, with
I-
the green diamond on them, yeah.
I had to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, and I shot the whole line from Council Bluffs. Every engine I seen, or every train I seen, I shot the whole thing from there. And it had to have been about 93, 94. Yeah. And all the way to Joliet there, the power plant there, you know, I just went the whole line.
Yeah.
And I've got some really
Did
good
you get down to Cedar Rapids, down through
I-
Hagen and those towns out of?
No, I just followed the main line. Yeah, I didn't go on any of the branches, you know, like, is there one out of Manchester? or
Manchester to Cedar Rapids.
Cedar okay, that's what I thought.
And for a long time I worked a job. We went to work like 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night out of Freeport and went over to Manchester and down that and tied up at Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
And then we'd sleep all day. And then the next night we'd come back and do the whole trip back to Freeport and then tie up. And then I'd drive back to Ladd like a maniac. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
6 days a week we did that job. Yeah.
Okay, so did you always live in Ladd?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I couldn't get her out of there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, she was from Red. We lived in Freeport a little while, but
Yeah.
then we went Harvey.
Harvey, okay, really?
Yeah, well, all the way down to Harvey. Harvey we used to
Okay.
go. Yeah. Hazel Crest homeward. Oh boy. Yeah. I don't believe we actually went down to the south.
Wow.
And that's finally where I was working in Cicero on the switch engines.
Really?
And
Okay.
That's where I retired from, was up there.
Okay.
That was no fun working in the city. That was.
I'll bet, yeah.
Although I had a wonderful engineer, his name was Frank Felice. And a matter of fact, him and I just come back from Las Vegas just last
Okay.
week.
Drew was telling me you guys were out there.
And yeah, and so usually twice a year, Frank
Yeah.
and I, he was my engineer. Probably the best engineer I ever worked with.
Really?
He was good.
Did you work with him in this area here in LaSalle?
Usually in Cicero.
Oh, usually in Cicero, okay, all right.
And we went to work at the racetrack in Cicero by Hawthorne Racetrack.
Okay. I've been in that yard before.
Oh, and a little bitty yard.
Yeah.
There's 7 hours and 55 minutes. You get a lot of hours there.
Yeah, but you couldn't go over 12, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
At that time, but originally when I hired out, we had 16 hours.
Really? Really? Did you have a lot
We
of
had a
16
job
hours?
that worked from Clinton called the Bloomington Switcher,
Okay.
and they would work 16 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Okay.
Probably something like that.
Crossing between East Junction
Oh, yeah. I could never
and
remember all of
Broadview. Okay. Wow.
and the milepost number in there.
Isn't that something? Wow.
Because every time you hit a car or something, they want to know where you're
exactly.
at with the
Really?
milepost, you know, and late in life, I started working in that direction, so I didn't remember none of that. You know, when you're a young boy, you remember everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when you get later, it's harder and harder to learn, I tell you.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Now, when you worked, what year did you work LaSalle area in Mendota? And
83 was the last year we worked. We had what we called the Mendota switcher, road switcher. We went
Okay.
to work at LaSalle. We switched up cars at LaSalle, went to Mendota. Sutton was my conductor. Frankie McGanna. Did you ever hear of that name?
No,
Frank
no.
McGanna. He's from Spring Valley. He was the engineer. Go to Mendota, switch around there, do motor wheel, and do those plants and that, and line up big pickup there for the through train to pick up coal cars, you know, from Milwaukee, you know, that they had left over, you know. But
now, how
then,
did?
then we'd go back and go to Oglesby and switch to cement mills.
Okay, okay. All right, so you're talking about the Mendota local, right? Out of LaSalle.
Yeah.
You went up to Mendota. Did you go up to Amboy at all, or you just
No,
went to
no.
Mendota and then you came back? Was there any switching between Mendota at all and LaSalle? Like maybe
Well,
Midway?
they used to load corn cobs now and then.
Okay, so they had a grain elevator?
There
or
was a
something?
siding there at Dimmick where the Dimmick church is.
Okay.
And then Midway, there was a siding, you know where the Midway siding is?
sure.
Then
Yeah.
there was a Y there. Did you know there was a Y that they could turn an engine on?
No, I didn't. At Midway there was a Y.
If they had an engine facing the wrong direction when they sell, they had to go up and turn it on the Y up at Midway.
Okay.
They didn't have a roundhouse to turn engines that they sell, you know.
Okay, all right.
So
See,
I didn't know.
I didn't know that.
How you turn an engine,
Yeah, right.
right? If
Yeah.
you're facing the wrong direction
Yeah,
at LaSalle, you know.
that's the only spot.
So they went up the hill all the way up past the LS and BC and went into Midway, and then that Y went off to the east and
Okay. Oh,
And-
my God.
came back.
Now, that time you met the LS&BC up there.
Yeah, and then they'd wait for the cement that they were loading in Oglesby.
Okay, so why did the LS&BC need the cement?
Well, and then they take it over and give it to the CB&Q over at Land.
Oh, okay.
They didn't need the cement, but it was just the way they said.
Okay.
It was just the way some guy figured out that's the way they were going to send it.
Really? How many
So-
cars would they?
Oh, 5 or 6
Okay. Fine.
or
Okay.
7 or 10 or depending on whatever the order was.
Okay.
But over at Oglesby, they would load, well, I know one New Year's Eve, they loaded 100 cars of cement in LaSalle and Oglesby combined.
Okay.
100
One.
all together.
And
That was including LaSalle
they had to go up to interchange with the LS&BC?
though. No, not all of them.
I was
No,
going to
no,
say, that'd
no.
be quite a busy
The Rock
day.
Island came up and got a bunch of them, and
Okay.
we send lots of cement north to Freeport and quite a few south to,
Oh, okay.
you know. So that's what we did. We'd get the cement and then line it up at LaSalle.
Okay, now to get into Alpha Cement there, you guys had to go across a little trestle or something across
Yeah,
the road?
down past Crazy George's shack. He lived right there and
Okay.
next to, did you know Crazy George? He used to walk down First Street with the
Right,
umbrella on his
yeah.
head.
Maybe I have heard about him. Was he a World War II veteran?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then he wasn't as crazy as he pretended to be, I don't
Yeah.
think.
I've said hi to him a few times when
And
you walk.
his sister lived in the last house there, old Joe. The last house on, what's that, Buck Street?
Buck Street, okay,
The
yeah,
last
okay.
house, that was his sister was married to that guy.
Oh, really? Okay.
And George lived in a little tar paper shack on the way down to the Alpha, that track that
Really?
went right, yeah.
Really?
Finally one day it burned down, then he went to live with his sister.
Okay.
And I knew and then he had a brother, George Tarbuck. His name was Tarbuck. And George Tarbuck was a real good golfer, and he moved out to California and just died recently.
Really?
Just strange how things, you know.
Now, did you do the Marquette Cement Company too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how much work did you have over there for cement?
Well, they could load like 45 cars of cement at the new mill, what they call the new mill up on
on-
Spring Street, you know,
Okay.
down from Willie Simmick's house. Did you know Willie Simmick?
No, I didn't.
No.
No.
Okay, he lived on Spring Street too.
Was that up at the
Up
top?
on top.
Okay,
the
gotcha,
silos.
gotcha.
We had to go
Okay.
south and then come in from the south and then go up there.
Okay.
And then down below, they usually loaded covered boxcars, but then they got to loading covered hoppers down there too. They'd load maybe a dozen down there also.
Okay.
Down behind Wayne Jones's house.
Okay, sure, gotcha, yeah.
Then we go down,
Okay.
cross down into that was the old mill, I guess. That was,
Oh, okay.
and they'd load cement down there too. So basically, they could use 45, 50, 60 cars. They could load over there on a busy day, and they didn't allow them to haul cement on the trucks. And
Oh, they didn't?
the railroad had that pretty well exclusive. See?
Really? I didn't know that.
And then I just don't remember when it was that Schwerman's finally come in and started finally loading cement in the trucks.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did the CB&Q have any interchange whatsoever with the IC over there in the Oglesby area, or you just kind of crossed, or they're kind of by the river there, the Vermilion?
They were down below there.
Okay.
No, there's no interchange with the
Okay.
CB&Q there. That's why the LS and BC had to, we had to
Oh,
take it up
okay,
there, give
gotcha.
it to them, and they had
Yeah.
to take it to LAD to give it to the CB&Q.
Is that right? Was there chemical cars or anything that the LS&BC would give to you guys to take to the yard?
Well, and then we also, what we gave the LS and BC was carloads of acid and things like that.
Oh, okay.
But it's funny, they never had any coal. Well, they had their own mine, didn't they?
I guess they did,
That's why they built the plant there, wasn't it?
yeah. Yeah,
That's why M&H Zinc built the plant there. They had their own coal mine because
Yeah.
it took
that's right, they did.
3 times as much coal to smelt 1 carload of ore.
Really?
3 to 1 was the, and so they built
Okay.
the zinc plants on the coal mine,
Okay.
and then they ran the railroad up to Oregon to get the ore. What kind of ore was it? Zinc ore? I guess it was zinc. Huh.
Probably zinc ore.
And then they shipped the zinc back here
Okay.
and to the coal mine where they,
Oh, okay.
and then they smelted the ore up there at the zinc, at the MA zinc.
Wow.
So you learned something there again. 3
Yeah.
to 1 it was.
Wow.
3 cards of coal
Wow.
to whatever they did up there with the
Really?
zinc.
Now, when you went up to Mendota, now you were talking about the coal cars. You brought coal. Did the through trains, the freight trains, bring the coal up from the south?
Up
To
from
the
the
Milwaukee.
mines in southern Illinois.
Okay.
In fact, I just left a guy at Hawaii and said he was from Mattoon. I said, oh, he said Mattoon, and I said, no, you were from Mattoon. He said, that's absolutely right. My boss don't like me to talk like that. But anyway, yes, the coal would come into Clinton, and they'd hold the crew there until they got 10,000 ton. After we got steam engines, of course, which they did pretty much in 56 when I hired. I was pretty much all diesel.
Okay.
A couple of steam engines, and I hated them. I didn't go near them.
Really?
So we get 10,000 ton of coal. This is 100 cars, maybe, you know.
Okay.
And then they'd run a train, and lots of times we'd give 40 or 50 of them to Milwaukee there at Mendota.
Okay. And they had a little interchange track that you
And
back
we'd
them up on.
pull up over the, I have a little anecdote I could tell you.
Sure.
You'd get off there, and of course, you didn't have radios. You know, you had
I
a
forget
signal.
that,
You
yeah.
had a signal, the engineer, and
You
so
know, at nighttime you'd
so
probably,
you'd
yeah.
you'd get I'd jump off, and then the train would go by, and you'd stop the engineer, you know, and then you'd make your cut, and you'd go ahead, and then they'd have to toot for the whistle, and then the guy in the tower would pull the handle up and go to the signal. Then you'd stop them, and then you'd throw the switch, and then you'd back them up. So I'd back them up, and then you'd stand there, you know, and the train would go back, and then down over into the Milwaukee Yard, you know how.
Gotcha.
that
Yeah,
goes.
I lived right on 7th Avenue there.
So on my second pay trip, you know, and then when the engine come by, you know, and you're watching back there to see if the other brakeman, the flagman would be back there with the switches lined up. You know, you're looking across the cattle yard there.
Gotcha, yeah, I know where you're at.
Engine would come by and you'd jump on, you ride back. So we started out. This is my second pay trip, you have to realize, like my fourth day of work. The engineer stopped. He went, blew the whistle. Now what's the matter? So we were all going to go eat in Mendota. You know, it was a hot summer, August day, something like that. There was an old man that was out there picking strawberries, and he'd had a heart attack and fell across the track. And here we had cut him in half.
Oh, really? Wow.
Of course, they ascertained later that he had been dead there a long time before we had cut him in half. You know, there was no blood or anything. It was just a guy laying there with the rail through him.
Really?
I thought, what have I got myself into
Wow. Oh,
here? And then we had to wait, of course, for the
Sure.
ambulance to come, and they had to pick up the guy's half, the lower half, and put it on there. And the top, the guys are running to the weeds, heaving, and it
Oh.
went bad on a hot summer day,
yeah.
you know. And
Wow.
but we got over it, you know.
Probably delayed
and then
you.
they had a big,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and then they had a big meeting about it, you
Oh,
know,
right,
to ascertain what happened to the guy. But so we had to come down to the inquest.
Uh-huh.
But
Now was that right by that little
so that would have been in
farm?
1956. So that
Okay.
would see he would have been right back there, just around the curve where the cattle
Gotcha.
thing was. See.
Very familiar with that area.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny that the guy from behind that walked up and through that switch, if he had just glanced up the track a little bit, he didn't see him. I couldn't see him because he was laying down
Yeah.
with the weeds growing. You
Yeah,
know.
and the weeds
I was
were
out
pretty
around
high
there.
in Milwaukee.
But of course he was dead already. So
Yeah. Now, did you guys have to, when you were going by the tower, Mendota, did you have to clear the crossing and then back up, or?
oh yeah,
Okay.
the one semaphore signal was down almost about even with the tool shed for the section man. You know
Okay.
where that was?
Yeah.
That's where one was, and then the other one was up, well, where the museum is now. It was
Okay.
The other semaphore signal was up there, so we had to go that far.
Oh, it had to go
Over
there. Okay.
to-
Okay.
But we didn't have to take those 40 cars and clear. We just held the crossing, you know,
Okay.
for that little while. We were
Okay,
around.
yeah.
Just went into the plant and then came right back out again.
Okay. Now, did you ever meet? Well, I'm sure you met opposing freights coming.
Oh,
you know,
lots of
from
times you
the-
had to
yeah.
sit there and wait for the passenger train to go, or opposing freight trains or something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember a guy by the name of Charlie Harmon. He worked a little Burlington Northern switcher, probably in around 70 or something. He'd come with a little green engine and set some cars out on the IC track there, that track to the east.
Yeah, over
Yeah.
there by the section men's shanty there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember
Yeah,
that.
that's where they delivered to us,
Okay.
and we delivered to them too. And they'd come over and pick
Okay.
up there, and we delivered.
Okay.
That's where we interchanged with CBU there. Yeah.
Okay. So on a typical busy day, now that would have been the through freight that you worked for a while, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And that started, you said, in Clinton?
Well, that was in 1956 that we were doing that.
Okay, right. Was it pretty busy? How many trains came through this on the Gruber here in this area a day? About a couple each way, or more than that?
Well, yeah, it was pretty much basically one through freight every day, one through freight every night in both directions.
Okay. Okay.
And then we had switch engine at Dixon and switch engine at LaSalle, and the Bloomington switch engine came out of Clinton up to Bloomington, did that.
Okay.
And so that's basically what we had just on the Amboy district, you know.
Okay.
So-
All right.
And so for years I worked the Dixon switch engine.
Oh, okay.
And then in the late 70s, they got rid of the switchman. You know, they paid, a lot of them took severance pay.
Yeah.
And then I know in '83, we were still working the road switcher, but they didn't give us an engine. So we'd go up there and sit and look at each other.
Well, they didn't give you an engine.
Give us an engine. but there was one of those, that's where the word featherbed come from, I think, because we reported for work,
Yeah.
but they didn't want to deadhead us to Freeport and deadhead us back and pay that extra wages. They just kept us at LaSalle in case they needed us.
Really?
Yeah. Then if they
With no
needed us,
engine?
they just set on an engine.
Okay.
So they paid us 6 days a week for sitting there not doing nothing.
Really?
Honest.
Really?
Honest. But of course that didn't last long,
Yeah.
you know, but
Now, where did you guys hang out, and where you guys, was the freight station still there, or the engine house that you guys kind of?
well, by '83, the original depot, the original depot that was right next to the track,
Yeah.
that was gone by then.
Right.
You know, I don't know when they tore that down, but, so he was there, I do not remember when they paid all that severance pay out to those guys, but they all took their severance pay and scattered
Really?
in the '70s, I believe that was.
Really? Were things starting to get pretty rough, like toward the '70s, where the business was really dropping way down,
Well,
the late '70s, or
The
was
thing
it
is,
still?
the diesel engine put so many people out of work. When, you know, if you had more cars, you didn't have to put another train crew on, you just added another engine.
Yeah.
And so the steam engine, if you had 40 cars, you ran a train. If you had 80 cars, you had to run 2 trains. But with the diesel engine, you just put another engine on. So you
Okay.
didn't need the manpower.
Oh, okay.
Plus, the steam engine was really inefficient. You had coal and water towers and turntables and roundhouse crews, and the diesel engine, you parked it and let it sit there. He didn't do anything to them, you know, but they just sit there and they ran all week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember-
we didn't even turn them off.
I remember listening to the
Yeah.
Milwaukee F units idling just south of,
Yeah.
you know, they used to sit right there by that farm, that little
Yeah.
ranch there, and I'd hear them all night, just humming, you know. Yeah, right.
I know, yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you have any stories to tell about the Illinois Central Mile Long Bridge there? I know it's technically not a mile, but
Other than, we used to have to get off on it on the fly, you know, sometimes to
really?
make a cut, you know, and you'd be coming into town, and then you'd have to get off a moving train onto that platform, was only this big.
wow. So then you're
You'd
coming
stand there.
north, right?
Coming north,
And-
yeah. and
Okay.
So then you drop off in the middle of the bridge, and they try to go pretty slow, but we had some engineers that were
Really?
inept.
Really?
And so you'd get off and risk your life to just get off the train so you wouldn't have to walk back. Of course, you could have rode up there and walked out and made the cut. And like I said, we didn't have radios then either. You have to remember, you had to give the guy a sign, you know,
Really?
go ahead. And then a lot of times we had a big coal train. We'd pull up, and then the switch in, you'd have to get behind us and push us up the hill.
Really?
Yeah, oh, you didn't know that one on either.
Oh, wait,
You
from
know.
Mendota?
No, when we were going north,
Okay.
we had all those, let's say we had maybe 50 or 60 cars for the Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
Well, then you had maybe 3 engines, well, you probably couldn't make the hill at LaSalle.
Okay.
And so you'd get going, and then you'd pick up cement, maybe 20 or 30 cars of cement, on top of all that coal you had. So now you're really heavy. So you start up the hill, and then the switch engine would come out after you went by, and then they'd get behind you and they'd push.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I didn't know that one.
Oh yeah, so they're all just about every night
Really?
you had to do that.
Really?
But,
Okay, so that was routine.
yeah.
So they were running some pretty big trains.
And during the summer months, they always had 3 or 4 switch engines working. It's hard to believe. But
Oh,
they said
really? 3 or 4?
3 or 4 crews working.
Really? And, okay.
So
kind
that
of
was an
describe-
engineer and three men,
Oh, an engineer and 3 men?
engineer, fireman, and 3 men.
Okay.
They actually had firemen then too.
Wow. Okay, so what did each one of those crews
Well,
do?
they'd all be lining up cars and getting cars. The Rock Island used to have a big delivery every day. They'd come up and shove cars up, and then they'd have to line up these cars for north and south.
Really? What kind of shipments were they bringing in? Rock Island?
Well, everything was a lot of LCL stuff. because we didn't have the trucks,
Okay.
you know. That freight house was a busy place.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had the Mendota turn, or the,
Well, and then,
Job.
see, then there was no train Mendota. The road crews did Mendota.
oh, okay, okay.
Take it back. I totally forgot. We used to have locals. We had a Freeport to LaSalle local that did all that kind of work.
Okay, Freeport to LaSalle local, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And Charlie Day was the conductor. And they'd come down, they'd tie up at LaSalle Monday, and then Tuesday they'd go back north to home. And all those guys lived in Freeport. They'd come down to LaSalle and they'd get drunk every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at LaSalle. They didn't have to walk far to a restaurant, to a tavern.
Right.
There was one right there in the corner, you know. And then some of them would sleep in the caboose. There's a little bunkhouse in the depot there, a little few bunks in the depot. And, yeah, and then they had another local that ran out of LaSalle South and did Tonica, Lawson, Winona, and Minonk, and all those places.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the way to Clinton?
All the way to Clinton.
Okay, and now where did you guys stay in Clinton?
In Clinton, they had rooming houses. You had to pay $1 a night for a room.
Okay. Now that wasn't in the old depot, right? That was a
At the
separate place?
Clinton Depot?
Yeah. Was that?
Well, we tied up in the yard, which is the big yard north. Have you ever been
Yeah,
there?
I have.
Huge, big yard. We tie up there, and then the roundhouse was just east of the big depot.
Okay.
And then take the engine to the roundhouse for servicing and refueling that. But then there was bunkhouses all over Clinton. I mean, not bunkhouses, but rooming houses.
Oh, okay, okay.
And you go in, you sign in, and put your dollar in the...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
$1, yeah.
put your dollar in the
Yeah.
thing and sign your name and your room number.
Wow.
And there'd be maybe 6, 7 room, or one bathroom. If you had to take a leak really bad, you were in trouble. You'd pound on the door. You know, but and the one room had a feather bed, and one old guy, he always wanted the feather bed. But
What about, okay, you were telling me the wages. You said $14 a day?
that was the local rate, $14.86 was for 8 hours. And then if you went on overtime, you got paid time and a half after overtime. But,
Okay.
which then the 8 hours was equal to 100 miles. If you can kind of comprehend that. So, but we got paid by the mile. And so
wow.
these guys that ran from Freeport to Clinton, they got paid 162 miles, which was a little over a day and a half's pay.
Okay. So.
But so they didn't go on overtime until after 13 hours and 27 minutes. But the thing was, they got paid their 13 hours, even if it only took them 8 or 9 hours to get there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So they got paid their 162 miles. That's how far it is from
Yeah.
Freeport to Clinton. Yeah.
So you're saying a day and a half's pay, so around $20 or 20?
Yeah, $18, yeah.
Yeah, really? Wow, that just seems like
Yeah, $14.86 for an 8-hour day is what it was. And so then I worked the switch engine. They got paid more. They got paid like almost $2 an hour, and I don't remember the rate, but they got paid a little more in the locals.
Really? Okay.
Of course, they worked harder.
Yeah, there
They
was
did.
a lot of work, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was there, you said Rock Island brought up a lot of stuff. Did the Rock Island deliver a lot of stuff to, because you were up on top there, and then they had a switch going into the plant there.
And well, then they'd come up the hill, you know, where that
Yeah.
is, and come
Sure.
on, and they'd shove
Yeah.
the cars up over 4th Street,
Okay.
and then they'd leave them up there, and then the switch engine would grab them and switch them all out. And then the Rock Island, their pickup was usually in the passing track. They'd shove those cars up there, and then they'd pick up off the passing track and take them back down.
Okay.
The hill.
Well, tell
Which
you
was-
what, there's a picture here, maybe you can point it out to me. This is kind of the,
And there was an old,
was it part of the old coal?
there was
Mine?
an old, a streetcar
Yeah.
generating plant right
Oh, really?
in that area, and the
Okay.
streetcar ran right underneath the Mile Long Bridge.
Okay. I do
right
have
alongside
pictures
of
that.
the Rock Island.
Uh-huh, okay.
And can you imagine my mother and, not my mother, yeah, my grandmother and my dad used to take that all the way to Chicago.
Really?
They could call it the interurban.
Yeah.
They'd ride that
I heard a lot
streetcar
about that.
all the way to Chicago.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to preserve, you know, the young people growing up today have no idea that that whole area was filled with yard tracks there in LaSalle.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as you could go, all the way to Union Street, you know. they
Yeah,
had-
from First to Fourth was all yard.
Yeah.
And there was one track went north under the bridge, the siding went little. Then up maybe 30 cars north of there, it joined back to the main line again.
Okay. How many guys worked in out of LaSalle, would you say, were
Well,
employed?
like in the
maybe?
summertime, they had 3, 6, 9, 12, and 8, be 16. So they had 16
16, okay.
for sure there,
Wow.
plus the office force,
Okay.
which they had a train master and a train master's clerk and an agent and an agent's clerk and
Okay.
and and the operators. The operator was another. They were the guys that filled out the orders for the trains that went by. They were open 24 hours a day there, so there was 3 operators, and so you had to have 4 or 5 of those working too.
Really?
So
24 hours a day.
yeah, 24 hours a day. It was just yeah, it was a busy place.
Okay. And were there any derailments in the yard?
Oh yeah, there's a couple pictures of some.
I did see those.
derailments
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
One day we had a empty flat car get loose at the north end, and we kept trying to throw blocks on it, couldn't get on, so I jumped on the end of it, you know how it's gonna,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't do that, and so I and the handle was down for the brake, so you had to pull it up,
Okay.
and then, so I went to pull it up and come all the way out, and I fell off the car.
Oh my God.
And here's the car rolling at me. I had to roll off.
Oh my God.
Chester, my brake was dead. I thought you were dead. And we kept throwing. So that now we got no handbrake. Couldn't stop, and it's going to roll down, and it's going to at the south end of the yard. It's going to roll down, roll into the train. There's a train. We had a train parked there. So shit, we're all in trouble. And if it glances off the train, it'll go off the end and fall down on the Rock Island. So we kept throwing bigger and bigger logs in front of it and ties and everything
Oh
and trying
my.
to slow down this car. I mean, it wasn't going really fast, but
Yeah.
we could run as fast as it was going.
Yeah.
And we finally got it slowed down. We finally got some refuge and logs and everything. We had stopped at First Street, but I thought we were in big, deep shit.
How did it get away?
We probably cut it off and the air brake didn't work.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know, you assume the piston's gonna come out and stop. Well, the piston didn't come out and it didn't. It just started rolling. So
Okay.
then you got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went to the Chicago Central then after, what was it, 85 or 86?
Yeah, when was that the
Must
Chicago
have been
Central
85 or
took
86,
over?
maybe 86.
That he came up and took over. So then we worked for him. And that's when I was working out of Freeport then. Of course,
Okay.
I didn't realize they had tore up the Amboy district in '86, it said there in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I had to work in Freeport because we didn't have a railroad down here.
Wow.
So then that's when I started running east and west and
Okay.
on the CCP.
So did you go all the way to Waterloo? And
Never ever made
Oh,
it to Waterloo.
Okay.
Manchester as far as I ever got.
Really?
Then we turned down, went to Cedar.
Oh, okay.
Never ever.
Okay. That was a pretty big yard in Freeport there.
Yeah, Freeport was a
Yeah.
nice big yard. Yeah.
Okay.
And I switched to Rockford a couple of years. I was to switch foreman there. And, that was oh man, it was cold there in Rockford.
Was it?
It was always warmer in Cicero. It was, for some reason.
Huh. What was the best job you think you had on the railroad? or
I
best
look
job?
forward to going and work here at LaSalle.
Really?
The LaSalle road switcher.
Okay.
Harold Sutton from Winona, call him Sleepy.
Okay.
Frank McGanna was the engineer. And then Bob Burris, he was the brakeman. Bob was a little flighty and, you know, it's overcharged up all the time, but and kind of a religious fanatic.
Okay.
But well, you could calm him down and get along with him. But I just enjoyed it. I couldn't wait till Monday morning and go to work.
Really?
You know, it was nice. It was.
Was
I drove from Ladd to LaSalle, and we had good guys to work with. And Mr. Murphy was in the depot. Gaylord Murphy,
I
did you know
remember
him?
the name, yeah.
And Frank Prazen was the clerk.
Don't know that.
Frank lived on Crozet and Third in the southwest corner.
Well, okay, I lived on, I lived on the Harp.
Got a big boulder in the corner right in front of his house
Oh,
on
okay.
3rd Street. It's still there.
Really?
And Frank is in the veterans home right now.
Okay. And you said you went to Ladd, too?
Well, I drove to Ladd.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Ladd.
Okay,
so
that's
I-
right, yeah.
And so it was just a good job, and we worked that job maybe 3 or 4 years. It was a real great job.
So a typical day on that job, was that the one where you had to go to Clinton and back?
No,
Or
that's
you
the one where we were the
local
Mendota
chemist?
switcher.
Okay.
We went to work there at LaSalle, and probably not too early in the morning, probably 9, because we'd be up to Mendota at motor wheel around 11 o'clock, and they like
Okay.
to switch around 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And so we were in Mendota around 11 and switched that out, and little things around Mendota would have to be done.
Okay.
Then come back to LaSalle and eat a little lunch, and then head over to Marquette and do all that cement switching still had to be done.
And that took a few hours to do?
Oh, yeah, that would take depending on how many they loaded, but sometimes it was,
Did you guys have a couple engines to bring those cars back to the yard?
well, no, just one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Now, how many cars could you guys handle? Well, probably since you're coming with loads down the hill to the bridge wasn't a problem.
No problem at all.
Okay. But if you had to go the opposite way, because I noticed that Buzzy, they only have that one, it was similar to a Jeep 10. I think it's Jeep 8 or Jeep 9.
Yeah.
And they only pull 9 loads up the hill with, because that just kind of
where
pushes
is this
them
at
down.
now?
In LaSalle here.
That's why they only bring 9.
Wait, okay, you used to bring...
On the mile-long bridge you're
Right.
talking about.
So, heading north, you used to bring about 45.
Yeah.
You could do 45 with a 1 inch?
Well, yeah, it was all downhill.
Right. Now, was there a slight grade up as you approached the bridge a
As
little
you
bit?
approach the bridge.
But you had all that weight
And over the
pushing you
years,
behind
they
you.
probably dumped about 100 carloads because that keeps sinking there. About 100 carloads of gravel I've seen them dump right there.
I noticed in some of your
Just south of the
pictures,
bridge.
you had a lot of gravel there.
Yeah, and that just keeps sinking over.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah. There was they assumed that there was a mine below there, and all this gravel they were pouring was just going into the mine.
Now, see, I never heard that.
It's
Wow.
just south of the bridge.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
a dip,
Right.
and there was a lot of gravel. They had the gravel right up to the top of the rail, and that's
Okay.
why they had that, because the gravel over the years
Okay.
would sink.
Okay.
And then they'd pour 5 or 6 more cars of gravel, and it'd sink, and they'd pour 5 or 6. I bet you while I worked there, they put 100 cars of gravel in there for sure.
Really? Wow.
Of course, I'm talking 37 years.
Well.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, did you guys do Tonica? Any switching in Tonica?
Tonica, the fertilizer plant, the south end. But when we hired out, you have to realize that all the grain elevators shipped grain in boxcars. They didn't put grain in covered hoppers like they do now. The
Really?
only covered hoppers that we put was cement. They didn't put grain in covered hoppers at all. And so you'd put boxcars at the elevator, and they'd put grain doors,
Gotcha.
planks up the
Yeah. On
side,
the
and
side,
then
yeah.
load the boxcars full of corn. And so every town had a grain elevator.
Yeah.
So
So you guys kept pretty busy with a lot of grain shipments.
grain.
That was probably a big
Then a little
thing.
later it got into fertilizer. There'd be little fertilizer plants like south of Tonic, north of Tonic,
Uh-huh.
and
Wow.
and what Lawston had an elevator, and And then the NYC, New York Central, crossed there
Oh, at Boston?
at Lawston.
Okay, I
And-
didn't know that. I should have.
And it's still there, that track is still there. It goes in the.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, okay.
The pencil, what is it called now, the,
So the, Norfolk Southern or something, is it not?
what is the, New York Central and Pennsylvania, and they merged
Yeah.
to the Conrail.
Conway, okay, yeah, yeah.
Okay, the Conrail track goes
Now-
across at Lawston.
Did you guys?
See, there was a railroad crossing there too,
Okay,
so we had a signal there.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't know if you went over or under.
And originally, it was a tower there, but they did away with that tower quite
Really?
early.
They did have a tower there.
Yeah, at Lawston.
Did you ever meet any opposing trains going?
Oh,
forward?
well, yeah, sometimes you had to, wait.
Okay.
And then, where'd we go, then Winona, then they had the big lake at Winona where they watered steam engines, you know.
Okay.
And they, of course, steam engines left, they took that out of service. In Winona, they had a couple elevators too at Winona. The greenhouse, for some reason, they always had a carload of coal. They'd order, and they'd unload the coal and take it out to the greenhouse. They had a fertilizer plant too. And then what's going on? Then after Winona, we went to Minonk, right? Oh, there's a town, Rutland was in there.
Okay.
They had an elevator. Every town had an elevator
Yeah.
that you had to, they wanted cars, and you set out, picked up boxcars and
Okay.
things.
Did you usually bring them all back to LaSalle, the ones that?
And Minonk, you met the Santa Fe there. And
Okay.
they always delivered to us at Minonk.
Really?
Yeah. They always had a good delivery. We always had lots of cars for Minonk.
Okay, because I remember the Santa Fe went, was it over you guys, right?
Yeah, but that's south, that's
south?
south of Minonk, isn't it? No, that's north, that's at Winona.
Oh, okay, Winona, I'm thinking.
But
okay,
there's
all right.
there's no grade crossing there. They went
Right.
over us, we went under them.
Okay, so how much
Then-
further is it from that point to?
To Minonk?
Yeah.
Oh, a good 5 miles.
Oh,
Because there's
okay.
Rutland,
All right.
Rutland, and then, so maybe 10 miles.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I didn't know that the Santa Fe,
Yeah, so we interchanged with Santa Fe at Minonk. And then, so
Yeah.
they had a local that came over there. I can still remember his name was Mr. Wilson.
okay.
Was the conductor on that job.
Where did they work out of, Streeter?
Streeter, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. See, I didn't know
And
that.
then we had a roundhouse and a steam engine there at Minonk for a long time. And they used to run the steam engine on that branch that went out of Minonk, went east.
Okay,
That was really the last steam engine we had.
really?
Ran east out of,
And did you ever, you said you never had to work with, on a steam engine before?
No.
No,
No.
okay, all right.
I was close to them, walked
Yeah.
around them, looked at them,
Right,
but I didn't
okay.
want to, I didn't want no part of them.
Yeah. Now, in the end, when the Illinois Central was about to fold up and to call it quits, what do you think the reason was that they abandoned the Gruber? I mean, if they were doing business, I mean.
They were doing well, I don't know, I really think a lot had to do with interest rates are high. And, they were making a 7% profit and interest rates were 10 or 12%. You could take $100, put it in the bank and collect 10% interest. And it was just too bad. And then they started funneling all that business into Chicago. And that's where the officials lived. And that's where they were at. We just knew everything was going to, all the mine, all the coal and everything went into Chicago and then came back out, and
Yeah.
so it really congested Chicago, but
Yeah.
it boosted their business, and maintenance got to be high. That's 162 miles of track that they had to maintain.
Yeah. And what was the speed limit on that?
It was 40 most places.
40 most places.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there times where?
Of course, 10 up and down, like the LaSalle Hill, that was 10 mile an hour.
Oh, was it? Okay. Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it was a good place to work, it really was. But, I mean, we didn't have any signals. It was all dark. I mean, you didn't have any signals like you do when you go east or west, the automatic train signals.
So you just had maybe
We had train orders.
the trainer. Yeah, okay, I got
And
you.
they said, don't go there because there's another train coming.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know, so then you waited
Yeah.
till you saw that other train, and then after he got by you, then you could go.
Okay. Now, in the Mendota Tower, did they ever hand up orders to the?
Oh, yeah,
to
absolutely.
you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
I was just thinking that Kenny Pearson worked there, and he just died recently. He lived in Ladd, that's why I happen to remember his name. But then there was some other guys that I got to know, but I can't remember the name. There's one guy who was a short, squatty guy, really, really built. But I used to, when I was flagging for work trains, that was usually in the summer, that's what I do, try to get on a work
Okay.
train.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'd be spreading ballast or fixing the track, or,
Okay.
and then I'd be the flagman for that, you know. So I got to know those guys in the tower, but the only name I can remember is Kenny Pearson.
Okay. Now, when the Mendota Tower, well, when the Milwaukee Road, I noticed they took out their diamond at the, at the crossover there. And then I think they had to use part of your track going up
They
through the
did come
diamond.
out for a
Yeah.
little while. They came out on our track, and it wasn't long after that they closed
Yeah.
the whole
I think it
line
was
down.
81.
Yeah, but and then when they closed that, well, that pretty much pushed. That was pretty much the end of us shipping coal up our way too, because
Yeah.
half our coal went to the Milwaukee at Mendota. It seemed
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Illinois Central crossing with the C and W at Dimmock. Did you have the crossover?
There was
Yeah.
there was an arm out there.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a. That was pretty much automatic. I don't ever remember anything other than an automatic signal there.
Okay.
Yeah, even in '56 that was automatic already. I'll tell you a little story about it. We
Sure.
coming out of Mendota, and the engineer was sitting over there. So, but I was awake, and so we were coming south. And so I was awake. I was sitting there and I watched, and we went through the distance signal, which was yellow, and then the arm goes up. It goes. So I didn't say nothing. We weren't speeding or anything. We were just going along, and he's sitting there. We went across the crossing, and even when you hit the crossing, usually that'd wake an engineer up. You know, and he was about a mile south. He went, looked around, hung his head out the window, looked back, and then I pretended like I was sleeping.
Oh.
So to this day, he does not know if that signal went green. He was over there sleeping, but hey, we were in it together. That was just just a little trick I pulled on him. I never ever told him, and
Really?
he never asked either. He still thinks that we just went through that.
I like those stories.
Well, one other
Yeah,
little
go ahead.
story.
I love the stories. Go ahead.
When we worked in, my friend Frank Felice, he tells the story about the two drunks that were staggering around, but then I wasn't on this train with him, but his brakeman said, they're going to step in front of you, Frank. No, they won't. He said, and they're going about 10, 15 miles an hour, and gates down, these two drunks are standing there, and he's blowing the whistle, and sure as heck one of them steps in front of him. Just as they get there, and boom, he hits him, and he knocks him off to the side. So he puts the train in emergency and looks back, and he said, you better, and he's calling, the ambulance and everything. He's looking back, and he said, well, his buddy's going over and help him. So his buddy ran over, grabbed his wallet, and took off down the street.
No way.
That's Chicago for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he left his buddy lay there, and he grabbed the wallet and away he ran.
Oh, my.
But the story, we were going down from Soldier Field south along Lakeshore Drive. That's pretty high-speed rail, 50-mile-an-hour limit, and a lot of passenger trains zipping by you, you know, commuter trains. So I'm sitting over there, relaxing in the brakeman's seat, you know, and we're clicking down the three. We just had a few cars going down to Homewood, and he starts slowing down, and I said, "What's the matter?" There's a box on the track, and it looked like a washer-dryer box, you know,
Yeah.
about so big. I said, "Well, it's just an empty box, hit it." And he said, "Nah," he said, "I think I'll stop for it." He said, "You can throw it off, it'll just be in somebody else's." I said, "I don't want to get off the engine, you know." "Nah," he said, "Yeah, I'll stop for it, you know." So we slow down and he stops. We didn't have a big train, we were early. So about the time he stops, three little black girls get out of this box and run across the track.
Gosh, really?
I said, "Thank you, Frank."
Wow.
If it wasn't for him, if we'd hit that box at 50 miles an hour, we'd have killed them girls.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we'd have known it or not.
Right.
But,
Oh my.
yeah.
That's a heck of a story.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so I did get off, and I took the box and snatched it up and threw it off. He was right there by those Cabrini Green
Yeah.
houses
Really?
there, you know, and they just come through the fence and come out and they're playing on the tracks. Can you imagine such a
No.
thing?
And then how far was it before you came to the
Oh,
box that they took
Well, he
off?
stopped short of it, like from here
Yeah.
to the
Okay.
to the wall there.
Really? And then they came running out?
Oh yeah. Well, then they heard the engine go. Shh. You know, the engine makes a noise when
Yeah.
it comes to a stop. You know.
Uh-huh.
They peek. Three little girls.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'll bet they're telling that story today.
Well, I don't know if they're telling anybody. You know, maybe
Well,
they're.
yeah, you
How
don't
stupid
know.
am I to be playing in the box?
Right,
in the middle of a
exactly.
railroad track?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if a passenger train,
Oh my.
somebody other than us,
Yeah. They
any
wouldn't
other
know.
train would not have stopped for that. You know, any kind of
No.
a big train or anything, we'd have just,
Right.
they'd just hit it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Jeepers. Yeah. So were there a lot of car accidents with cars that you hit? or
Yeah, I
no?
had a few, but we never really had any really bad injuries. We hit a cow up by Dimmick one time. That was an awful mess.
Really?
Killed the cow, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, the farmer said it was a prize bull, you know, it cost a lot, it cost the railroad a lot of money, you know. but yeah, the cow was on the track, and I was going to go out the front door with the broom, and the engineer said, "Get back in here, you don't want to be out there when we hit him." So I just got back in the cab, and boom, we hit in the guts, and blood was flying off.
Oh.
So it was a mess.
Oh man.
But and we hit a truck or two, but it never involved in any injuries.
Yeah.
Where that Bobby Linden, that guy that's in that picture, his name is mentioned in that picture. He was on a train and they killed 5 boys at Eldina.
Oh man.
There was six boys at a picnic table in the back of a pickup truck going from the school, and the janitor was driving the pickup truck. And driving along, he pulled right out in front of the train, and the train hit him going about 40 miles an hour.
Oh my.
Killed 5 of those boys.
Really?
Yeah. Then they came later, after all was said and done. They came down into Dixon, and those guys were just sick. You know, that whole crew was really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. Did they get? They want time off after that?
Well, yeah, they just quit when they brought the train down to Dixon, and then they sent another crew to relieve them, you know, to them home. But, I think that was George Warren was the engineer. He was one of these bad luck engineers that seemed to. Whenever there was a fatality, George seemed to be the engineer.
Oh, really? How about journal boxes? Did you ever have little fires on the sides
we
of
had
the?
journal boxes fall off that Paul McDonald and I were on a train coming north, and I said, "Frank or Paul," we were in the caboose, and we crossed there at El Paso. We were going north, and I looked and I said, "I think we got a fire up there, Paul." And so he come up and he looked down and he said, "Yeah." He said, "We'll get the," and of course we got no radios. You got to remember back then we had no radios.
Oh, so you couldn't get a hold of the engineer?
There was no way to tell the engineer,
Oh.
you got a fire, you know. So he said, we'll wait till we get near Panola and we'll see. And so Panola was a little bitty sidetrack elevator.
Okay.
And so he went over and he pulled the air. So, so that's the only way you can,
Oh, okay.
it's the only way you can do anything.
Oh, okay,
Stop
so you can pull the air from the caboose?
from the caboose
Oh,
and stop
okay.
the train. So we
Okay.
stopped the train. And we walked over and here's journal box burning, you know, and it's hot box. And so, and it's burning. So we walked over and got in touch, told them we're gonna have to set that car out at Panola. So we made the cut and pulled it up to Panola and set it in. And just as we were setting it in, it fell down. The journal broke and it fell down.
Wow. Ooh, that was a close call.
Yeah. And so there it was.
That's as close as you
So
get.
we said, my God, if we'd have let it go,
That
there'd have
would've
been a
direct
hell of a
one.
big train wreck.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
Paul and I on the caboose, we got killed.
Yeah?
I figured I saved our lives at that time.
How many cars up was it from the caboose?
I'm gonna say, well, it was hard to see, probably 20 cars ahead of the caboose,
Really?
because they had to lean way out to see it.
Yeah. And you
And
guys-
most guys, after you go around the curves at Kappa, they didn't look the train over anymore.
Yeah.
But you know, it was 50-some miles of straight track from Kappa to Tonica.
Oh, really?
It was the
Just
second
straight.
longest piece of straight track in the United States.
Really? Okay, I like that.
Well, I don't know how far from Tonica to Kappa, plus 4 or 5 miles north. It was just perfectly straight.
Really? I'll bet it could be easier for the engineers
I think it was
to fall
52
asleep.
miles. 52 miles of straight track, and if you didn't look your train over now and then,
Yeah,
things like this would happen.
yeah.
So,
Wow.
you know, that's, when you had curves, you could look out and see the train, you know,
Yeah.
look out and see the train. But when there's no curves, you can't do that.
Forever. I thought the Gruber line would be there.
Oh,
forever.
I thought it would be too.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, when they closed it, I was.
What was your last job on the Gruber? Do you remember that?
Probably that LaSalle road switcher job.
Really?
Yeah, because 83 was when we were sitting around working and not being paid. You know, I mean, being paid and not working.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And then right after that, they pulled that job off. You know, they did away with that. They ran a couple of jobs down in the LaSalle. So yeah. But then, by then, you know, you don't just sit around and wait for things to close. By then, you go other horizons, go
Yeah.
other places. I was
Yeah.
probably on the switch engine in Freeport by then, and working
Oh.
regular in Freeport on the switch engine, you know.
And now, was that pretty busy there? You went as far as Rockford and...
No, switch engine, they had switch crews at Freeport that just stayed right
Okay,
there.
I
They had
keep getting
a lot
that
of
confused,
trains
yeah, okay.
coming into Freeport.
Okay,
That was a terminal.
okay.
And they changed crews there. The west crews stopped there, and the east crews stopped there, and they changed crews.
Okay.
And even the passenger trains changed crews there.
Really?